The rain was a cold, relentless beast, clawing at my skin as I stumbled through Portland's streets, my backpack sagging under the weight of my failures. I was 25, jobless, and freshly evicted from my overpriced studio apartment, with nowhere to go but the one place I swore I'd never lean on again: Mateo's house. My straight best friend, the guy who'd been my anchor since high school, was about to get an uninvited guest, and I wasn't sure if I was more afraid of his rejection or my own buried feelings resurfacing. I stood on Mateo's porch in Selwood, a quaint neighborhood where the Willamette River's hum was a quiet comfort. My sneakers squelched, soaked through, as I hesitated to knock. Mateo Rivera, 26, with his easy grin and dark curls that always seemed to defy gravity, had been my safe harbor for a decade. We'd met in sophomore year, bonding over late-night video games and shared dreams of escaping our small-town roots. I was Devin Carter, the artsy black kid who wore his heart on his sleeve, while Mateo was the charming jock who could talk his way out of anything. He was straight, always had been, and I'd spent years convincing myself my feelings for him were just a phase, a crush I could bury under friendship. The door swung open before I could knock, and there he was, his hazel eyes widening. "Devin? Man, you look like a drowned rat. Get in here." His voice was warm, but there was a flicker of worry in his gaze as he pulled me inside. The house smelled of cedar and coffee, a small craftsman-style home he'd bought last year after landing a gig as a graphic designer. I dripped onto his hardwood floor, feeling like an intruder. "Sorry, I didn't know where else to go," I mumbled, my pride stinging more than the cold. I hadn't told him about the eviction, the missed rent, or the fact that my graphic novel pitch had been rejected for the 10th time. I was a mess, and standing in his cozy living room, with its mismatched furniture and vinyl records stacked by the stereo, made me feel smaller. Mateo didn't ask questions. He just grabbed a towel from the bathroom and tossed it at me. "Dry off, dude. You're staying here as long as you need." His tone was firm, like he was daring me to argue. I wanted to protest, to say I'd figure it out, but the truth was, I had nothing left. So I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. That first night, we sat on his couch, sharing a pizza and a six-pack of local IPA. The rain battered the windows, but inside, it was warm, safe. Mateo talked about his latest freelance project, his voice animated as he described designing a logo for a local brewery. I listened, half lost in the way his hands moved, the way his laugh filled the room. I'd always been good at hiding how much he meant to me, but tonight, with my life in shambles, the walls I'd built felt paper thin. "So, what's going on with you?" he asked, leaning back, his eyes searching mine. "You don't just show up looking like you fought a hurricane unless something's up." I froze, the beer bottle cold against my palm. I could have lied, brushed it off like I always did, but something in his gaze, steady, unguarded, made me crack. "I got evicted," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "Lost my job at the coffee shop, too. My art, it's going nowhere. I'm just failing." Mateo didn't flinch. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and said, "You're not failing. You're just in a rough patch. You'll get through this, Dev. We'll get through this." The "we" hit me like a punch. I wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at me. I was the gay kid who'd spent years pining for his straight best friend, and now I was crashing on his couch, dragging my chaos into his life. How long could this last before I ruined everything? Over the next few days, Mateo made it easy to forget my failures. He cooked breakfast, burnt pancakes and all, while I sketched in his living room, my pencil scratching out characters that felt more alive than I did. He didn't pry, but he was there, steady as ever. We fell into a rhythm, like old times, but there was a new tension I couldn't ignore. The way his hand lingered when he passed me a mug, the way he'd catch my eye and hold it a second too long. I told myself I was imagining it. Mateo was straight. He dated women, flirted with baristas, lived the life I could never fit into. But every night, as I lay on his couch, staring at the ceiling, I wondered if I was lying to myself. One evening, a week into my stay, we walked to a nearby food cart pod. The air crisp with autumn. Portland's streetlights glowed amber, and the crowd buzzed with laughter and music from a nearby busker. Mateo nudged my shoulder, grinning. "You remember that time we snuck into that punk show in high school? You were so paranoid we'd get caught." I laughed, the memory loosening the knot in my chest. "Yeah, and you were the one who got us kicked out for trying to bribe the bouncer with a half-eaten burrito." "Hey, it was a good burrito," he shot back, his eyes crinkling. For a moment it was just us, two kids against the world. But then his hand brushed mine as we walked, and my heart stuttered. It wasn't an accident. His fingers lingered, curling slightly, and when I glanced at him, his expression was unreadable, a mix of curiosity and something deeper. "Mateo," I started, but my voice caught. I didn't know what to say, didn't know how to ask what was happening without breaking whatever this was. He stopped walking, turning to face me under a flickering streetlight. "Dev, he hesitated, his jaw tightening. "I don't know how to say this, but you being here, it's made me think about a lot of things." My pulse raced. I wanted to ask what he meant, but fear glued my tongue. Was this the moment I dreamed of, or the one that would shatter our friendship? Before I could speak, he stepped closer, his breath visible in the cool air. "I'm not as straight as I thought," he said softly, his eyes searching mine for a reaction. The world tilted. I stood frozen, the noise of the food carts fading into a dull hum. Mateo, my Mateo, was standing here, saying words I'd never let myself hope for. But doubt crept in, sharp and cruel. Was this real, or was he just caught up in the moment? I opened my mouth to respond, but the words wouldn't come. All I could do was stare, my heart pounding like it wanted to break free. The words hung between us, heavy and fragile, like a glass ornament teetering on the edge of a shelf. Mateo's confession, "I'm not as straight as I thought," echoed in my mind, each syllable a spark that threatened to ignite everything I'd kept locked away. I stood there, under the flickering Portland streetlight, my breath shallow, afraid that if I moved, this moment would shatter. "Say something, Dev," Mateo urged, his voice low, almost pleading. His hazel eyes, usually so confident, were raw with uncertainty. I wanted to reach out, to bridge the gap between us, but my hands stayed glued to my sides. What if this was a mistake? What if he woke up tomorrow and regretted it? I don't know what to say. I admitted, my voice cracking. "You're straight, Mateo. You've always been straight. What's changed?" I hated how defensive I sounded, but years of guarding my heart had made me wary. He ran a hand through his curls, exhaling sharply. "I don't know, okay? I've been trying to figure it out. But you being here, seeing you every day, it stirred something up. I can't ignore it anymore." He stepped closer, his sneakers scuffing the pavement. "I see you, Devin. I've always seen you. And maybe I've been too scared to admit what that means." My chest tightened, a mix of hope and terror. I'd spent so long convincing myself that Mateo was untouchable. A straight guy who'd never see me the way I saw him. Now here he was unraveling everything I thought I knew. But the fear was louder than the hope. "What if you're wrong?" I whispered. "What if you're just confused? I can't lose you, man. Not as a friend." Mateo's jaw clenched, and for a moment, I thought he'd back away, retreat to the safety of our old dynamic. But instead, he reached out, his hand grazing my arm. "I'm not confused about you," he said, his voice steady now. "I'm scared, yeah, but I know what I feel." The air felt electric, charged with possibility and risk. I wanted to believe him, to let myself fall into this moment, but the weight of my own insecurities held me back. I was the guy who'd always been too much, too emotional, too queer, too broke. Could someone like Mateo, who'd always had the world at his feet, really want me? Before I could spiral further, he spoke again, softer this time. Let's go home. We don't have to figure this out tonight. His hand lingered on my arm for a second longer before he let go, and we started walking back to his house in silence. The tension between us was a living thing, pulsing with every step. Back at the house, Mateo busied himself making tea, a nervous habit I'd forgotten he had. I sat at the kitchen counter, sketching absently in my notebook, trying to anchor myself. The page filled with sharp lines, a figure that looked too much like him, broad shoulders, that familiar tilt of his head. I snapped the book shut when he slid a mug toward me. "Thanks," I muttered, wrapping my hands around the warmth. The silence stretched, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was heavy with unspoken questions, a crossroads we both knew we'd have to face. The next few days were a strange dance of normalcy and something new. Mateo didn't push, but he didn't pull back either. He'd sit closer than necessary on the couch, his knee brushing mine as we watched old sci-fi movies. He'd leave coffee for me in the mornings, my name scrawled on a sticky note in his messy handwriting. Each gesture felt like a question, and I didn't know how to answer. One afternoon, while he was at a client meeting, I wandered into his small backyard, a patch of grass framed by cedar trees. I needed air, space to think. My sketchbook was open in my lap, but my pencil hovered, useless. I kept replaying his words, the way his eyes had held mine. Was this real, or was I setting myself up for heartbreak? I'd been out since I was 16, navigating a world that didn't always make space for someone like me. A black, queer artist with big dreams and bigger doubts. Mateo had always been my safe place, but this new territory felt like a tightrope. When he got home, he found me outside, the sun dipping low. "You okay?" he asked, sitting beside me on the grass. His flannel shirt was rolled up to his elbows, and I tried not to notice the way the fading light caught his skin. "Yeah," I lied, then sighed. "No, I'm freaking out, Mateo. Whatever this is, it's a lot. I don't want to mess us up." He nodded, his expression serious. "I get it. I'm scared too. But I meant what I said. I'm not playing games here." He paused, then reached for my hand, his fingers warm and steady. "I don't have all the answers, but I want to figure this out. With you." My heart pounded, but this time I didn't pull away. His hand in mine felt like an anchor, grounding me in a way I hadn't realized I needed. "Okay," I said finally, my voice barely audible. "Let's figure it out." That night, we stayed up late, talking about everything and nothing. Our fears, our dreams, the years we'd spent circling each other without saying the truth. He told me about the first time he'd questioned his sexuality, a fleeting moment in college he'd brushed off. I told him about the nights I'd lain awake, hating myself for wanting him. It was raw, messy, and real, and for the first time, I felt like we were seeing each other fully. But the world outside Mateo's house wasn't as forgiving. A few days later, we ran into one of his old high school buddies, Jake, at a local bar. Jake was all frat boy energy, loud and oblivious, and when he saw us together, his eyes narrowed. "Yo, Mateo, you two look cozy," he said, his tone teasing but sharp. "What's the deal?" Mateo stiffened, his hand dropping from where it had been resting on my shoulder. "Just hanging out," he said, his voice tight. The dismissal stung, and I felt the old doubts creep back. Was he ashamed? Was this too much, too fast? I forced a smile, playing along, but inside, I was reeling. Later, back at the house, I confronted him. "What was that, Mateo? You just brushed it off. Like I'm just your buddy." He winced, running a hand over his face. "I didn't mean it like that," Jake's an idiot and I froze. I'm still figuring out how to do this. Dev, I'm not ashamed of you. I swear. I wanted to believe him, but the hurt lingered. I need you to be sure, I said, my voice shaking, because I can't do this half-in, half-out thing. I've been there before, and it breaks me. Mateo stepped closer, his eyes fierce. I'm in, Devin. All in. I just need time to catch up to what I feel. He reached for me, and this time, I let him pull me into a hug. His arms were strong, steady, and for a moment, I let myself believe we could make this work. But as I lay on the couch that night, staring at the ceiling, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were standing on the edge of something bigger, something that could either save us or break us apart. The days after our confrontation felt like walking on eggshells, but Mateo was trying. He was deliberate now, small gestures that spoke louder than words. A hand on my back as we navigated a crowded coffee shop, a quiet "you good?" when I got lost in my thoughts. But the world kept testing us, and I couldn't shake the fear that we were moving too fast toward something neither of us was ready for. One morning, I woke to find a note on the kitchen counter. Gone to the market. Breakfast is on me. M. I smiled, tracing his messy handwriting. It was such a Mateo thing, thoughtful in a way that snuck up on you. I decided to surprise him by cleaning up the house, a small way to repay his kindness. As I dusted his bookshelf, I found an old photo album tucked behind a stack of graphic novels. Curiosity got the better of me, and I flipped it open. The photos were a time capsule of our high school years. Mateo in his soccer jersey, me with my sketch pad, both of us grinning at a bonfire on the Oregon coast. One photo stopped me cold. Us at prom, arms slung around each other. My face lit up with a smile I hadn't realized I'd lost. Mateo had been my date. Not romantically, just as friends, but looking at it now, I saw something in his eyes I'd missed back then. A softness, a question he hadn't yet asked himself. When he got back, arms full of grocery bags, he caught me with the album. Snooping, huh? He teased, but his smile faltered when he saw the photo I was staring at. You kept this, I said, holding it up. Why? He set the bags down, his expression thoughtful. Because it's us. That night, it was one of the best. You were so happy, Dev. I wanted to keep that. My throat tightened. I wanted to ask if he'd felt something even then, but before I could, he changed the subject, pulling out ingredients for pancakes. Come on, help me cook. No burning them this time. We laughed, falling back into our rhythm, but the photo lingered in my mind. It was a reminder of how long we'd been intertwined, how much history we carried. It made me want this, us, more than ever, but it also scared me. What if we couldn't live up to that past? That afternoon, Mateo suggested we visit Powell's Books, the massive bookstore that was practically a Portland landmark. We wandered the stacks, trading recommendations and stealing glances. In the graphic novel section, he handed me a copy of Fun Home by Alison Bechdel, his fingers brushing mine. You'd like this, he said. It's about figuring yourself out. Kind of feels like us right now. I raised an eyebrow, surprised he'd picked something so personal. You read this? He shrugged, a shy grin tugging at his lips. I've been doing some research, trying to understand everything. My heart swelled, but before I could respond, a voice cut through the moment. Mateo? No way. It was Lila, an ex-girlfriend from his college days, all blonde hair and confidence. She hugged him, oblivious to me at first, then turned with a polite smile. Oh, hi. You must be Devin, right? Mateo's told me about you. The way she said it, casual, friendly, made my stomach twist. Mateo had told her about me, but as what? His friend? His roommate? I forced a smile, nodding, but the encounter left me rattled. As we left the bookstore, I couldn't shake the image of Mateo with her, with someone who fit into his old life so easily. You okay? He asked as we walked back to his car, the city buzzing around us. Yeah, I lied, then stopped. No, I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like, what if you realize this isn't what you want? That I'm not enough. Mateo stopped walking, turning to face me. His eyes were fierce, almost angry. Don't do that, Dev. Don't put words in my mouth. I'm here, aren't I? I'm choosing this. Choosing you. His words hit hard, but they didn't erase the doubt. I nodded, wanting to believe him, but the fear was a shadow I couldn't outrun. That night, we watched a movie in silence, the space between us on the couch feeling wider than it should. I wondered if he felt it too, the weight of what we were trying to build, the risk of it all crumbling. The next day, Mateo surprised me with a plan. A hike to Multnomah Falls, a towering waterfall just outside the city. You need to get out of your head, he said, tossing me a pair of his hiking boots. And I need to see you smile. The trail was steep, the air sharp with pine and mist. We climbed in companionable silence, the roar of the falls growing louder. At the top, we stood on a lookout, the water cascading below us like a living thing. Mateo's shoulder brushed mine, and when I looked at him, his eyes were soft, unguarded. I've never brought anyone here, he said. Not like this. I swallowed, my heart racing. What's different this time? He turned to me, his expression serious. You make everything different. Before I could respond, he leaned in, his lips brushing mine in a tentative, searching kiss. It was soft, uncertain, but it set my world on fire. I kissed him back, my hands finding his, and for a moment, the doubts melted away. It was just us, the falls, and the promise of something new. But as we hiked back down, reality crept in. A group of hikers passed us, their glances lingering a little too long. I saw Mateo tense, his hand slipping from mine. It was subtle, but it stung. Was he still unsure? Was he afraid of being seen with me, like this? I didn't ask, but the question burned in my chest. Back at the house, we avoided the topic, falling back into our routine. But the kiss had changed something, made the air between us heavier. I caught myself watching him, when he laughed, when he sketched at his desk, when he glanced at me like he was trying to memorize my face. I wanted to believe we could do this, but the world wasn't always kind to people like me, and I didn't know if Mateo was ready for that fight. As I lay on the couch that night, I made a decision. I couldn't keep living in this limbo, half in, half out. Tomorrow, I'd ask him where we stood, no more dancing around it. But as I drifted to sleep, I couldn't shake the fear that the answer might break my heart. Morning light filtered through Mateo's curtains, casting soft shadows on the hardwood floor. I woke with a resolve I hadn't felt in weeks. I needed to know where we stood. The kiss at Multnomah Falls had been a spark, but sparks could burn out, and I couldn't keep teetering on the edge of hope and fear. I found Mateo in the kitchen, flipping pancakes with a focus that made me smile despite myself. He glanced up, his grin easy but tinged with something cautious. Morning, Dev. Hungry? Yeah, I said, sitting at the counter. But we need to talk. His shoulders stiffened, but he nodded, sliding a plate toward me. Okay, lay it on me. I took a breath, my hands gripping the edge of the counter. That kiss, it meant everything to me. But I saw how you pulled back when those hikers passed us. I need to know if you're really in this, Mateo, because I can't do halfway. Not with you. He set the spatula down, his eyes meeting mine. I know I messed up, he said, his voice low. I got scared. Not of you, of what it means to be this, out there. But I'm not backing out, Dev. I want this. I want us. His words were a lifeline, but doubt still gnawed at me. What happens when it's not just hikers? When it's your family, your clients, your whole world? I've been out my whole life, Mateo. I know what it's like to lose people because of who I am. Are you ready for that? He flinched, but he didn't look away. I don't know, he admitted. But I'm willing to find out. For you. I wanted to believe him, but the weight of his uncertainty settled in my chest. We ate in silence, the pancakes tasteless despite his efforts. I knew he was trying, but trying wasn't enough. Not when my heart was on the line. That afternoon, Mateo had a client meeting, so I took my sketchbook to a nearby park, hoping the open air would clear my head. I drew aimlessly, the lines forming a figure that was unmistakably him. Strong jaw, soft curls, eyes that held 1,000 questions. I was so lost in it that I didn't notice the woman sitting nearby until she spoke. "You're good," she said, nodding at my sketchbook. She was older, maybe 50, with warm brown skin and a kind smile. "You look like you're working through something." I laughed, surprised. "Is it that obvious?" She shrugged, her eyes crinkling. "Art's like that. It shows what you're feeling, even when you don't want it to. I'm Angela, by the way." We talked for a while, and I found myself opening up about Mateo, about the kiss, about my fears. Angela listened, her presence steady. "Love's never easy," she said finally, "especially when the world's watching. But if he's worth it and he's trying, give him a chance to catch up. You don't have to carry it all alone." Her words stuck with me as I walked back to Mateo's house. Maybe I was asking too much, too soon. Maybe love, real love, meant meeting each other halfway even when it scared us both. When I got home, Mateo was waiting, his laptop open to a local art gallery's website. "I found something," he said, his voice excited. "They're looking for submissions for a queer artist showcase. I thought you should send in your graphic novel." I blinked, caught off guard. "You looked this up for me?" "Yeah," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "I know how much your art means to you, and I want you to know I see you. Not just as my friend, but as this incredible person who deserves to be heard." My heart swelled, and for the first time in days, I felt a flicker of hope. I spent the evening polishing my portfolio, Mateo at my side, offering feedback and bad jokes to keep me grounded. It was a small thing, but it felt like a promise, a step towards something real. But the world had other plans. A few days later, Mateo's mom, Elena, showed up unannounced. She was a force of nature, all warmth and sharp questions, and I'd always liked her. But when she saw us together, Mateo's hand brushing mine as we cooked dinner, her smile faltered. "Mateo, can I talk to you?" she said, her tone clipped. They stepped into the backyard, and I busied myself with dishes, my stomach churning. I couldn't hear their words, but the tension was palpable. When they came back inside, Elena's eyes were red, and Mateo looked like he'd been punched. "She needs time," he said after she left, his voice hollow. "She doesn't get it. Not yet." I nodded, my throat tight. I knew what it was like to face family disapproval, but seeing Mateo hurt made it worse. "Are you okay?" I asked. He shook his head, then pulled me into a hug. "I will be, as long as you're here." We held each other, the weight of the world pressing in. I wanted to protect him, to shield us both from the judgment that was sure to come. But I knew it wouldn't be easy. Not for him, not for us. One night, as we sat on his porch, the lake shimmering in the distance, I couldn't hold it in anymore. "Mateo, I need to know you're not going to pull away. I can't keep wondering if you're ashamed of me." He turned to me, his eyes fierce. "I'm not ashamed, Dev. I'm learning, okay? I'm trying to be the person you deserve. But it's not just about us. It's about everyone else, too. And I'm not gonna let them tear us apart." His words were a vow, and I wanted to believe them. But as I looked at him, the moonlight catching his face, I knew we were only at the beginning. The world was waiting, and it wasn't going to make this easy. The gallery email came on a crisp October morning, the kind where the air smelled of leaves and possibility. I'd been accepted into the Queer Artists Showcase, my graphic novel panels set to hang alongside Portland's best. Mateo whooped when I told him, pulling me into a hug that lifted me off the ground. "I knew you'd do it, Dev," he said, his grin brighter than the sun streaming through the windows. But the joy was tempered by the weight of what we hadn't resolved. Mateo was trying. God, he was trying. But the world kept pushing back. His mom's silence after her visit lingered like a bruise, and I caught him checking his phone too often, waiting for a text that never came. I wanted to be his rock, but I was still finding my own footing, balancing hope with the fear that this us might not survive the pressure. The night of the gallery opening, I was a wreck. My panels, raw and personal, told the story of a black queer kid navigating love and loss in a world that didn't always make room for him. I hadn't told Mateo how much of it was inspired by us, by the ache of wanting him for years. As we got ready, he adjusted my tie, his fingers lingering. "You're gonna kill it," he said, his voice soft. "I'm proud of you." I wanted to kiss him right there, but the doorbell rang, friends from his design firm, here to carpool to the gallery. I saw the flicker of hesitation in his eyes as he introduced me. "This is Devin," he said, and I waited for more, a label, a claim, but it didn't come. I smiled through it, but it stung. The gallery was alive with color and noise, my panels glowing under the lights. People milled around, praising my work, but I kept glancing at Mateo, who stayed close but didn't touch me. I told myself it was fine, he was here, wasn't he? But when Jake, his old high school buddy, showed up, my stomach dropped. "Nice art, man," Jake said, clapping me on the shoulder. Then he turned to Mateo, smirking. "Didn't know you were into this scene, Rivera. You two a thing now, or what?" The room seemed to quiet, though it was probably just in my head. Mateo's jaw tightened, and for a moment, I thought he'd brush it off again. But then he slipped his hand into mine, his grip firm. "Yeah," he said, his voice steady. "We're a thing." My heart stopped. Jake blinked, caught off guard, then laughed awkwardly. "Cool, cool. Good for you." He wandered off, but the moment was seismic. Mateo had claimed me in front of everyone, and the weight of it made my knees weak. Later, as we stood by my panels, he squeezed my hand. "I'm sorry I've been slow," he whispered. "I'm in this, Dev. For real." I nodded, tears pricking my eyes. "I know. I see you trying." The rest of the night was a blur of congratulations and wine, but the real victory was us, standing together, no longer hiding. When we got home, we sat on the porch, the lake a quiet mirror under the stars. Mateo turned to me, his expression soft but determined. "I talked to my mom," he said. "She's still processing, but she wants to meet you. Really meet you, not just as my friend. I told her I love you." The words hit like a wave, washing away the last of my doubts. "You love me?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "Yeah," he said, his smile shy but certain. "I think I always have." I leaned in, kissing him, and this time, there was no hesitation, no fear. It was just us, messy and real, building something new. I thought about the years we'd spent circling each other, the pain and joy of getting here, and I knew it was worth it. The next few weeks were a learning curve. Mateo navigated coming out, facing questions from friends and family with a courage that made me love him more. I found my own strength, pouring my heart into my art, knowing I had someone in my corner. We weren't perfect. There were arguments, insecurities, moments when the world felt too heavy, but we faced it together, hand in hand. One evening, as we sat by the lake, sketching and laughing, I realized something. Love wasn't just the big moments, the kisses, the confessions. It was the quiet ones, too, the way Mateo burned pancakes but made them anyway, the way he believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. It was the choice to keep going even when it was hard. I looked at him, his curls catching the fading light, and I knew we'd be okay. Not because the world would always be kind, but because we'd chosen each other. And that was enough.